You went what?
I were at Lincoln.
All right, here's the deal. People make choices about food every day. Dieting, general health, personal preference, all of that is called food security. Food secure is an official USDA term. Access at all times to enough food for an active, healthy life. Guess which other term the USDA defines? Yeah. So, what is food insecurity? Food insecure, a household-level economic and social condition of limited or uncertain access to adequate food. In English, it's less choices about food. Sometimes no choice.
Food and nutrition and our thoughts around food are very emotional. We celebrate with food, we mourn with food, we do everything surrounding food. Going without food is traumatizing for people. They're scraping by, they're eating nothing with nutrients in it, and they feel like crap.
There are two levels of food insecurity: low food security and very low food security. Very low food security is reports of multiple indications of disrupted eating patterns and reduced food intake. 4.1% of American households experienced very low food security in 2019. People experiencing very low food security are people experiencing hunger.
Food insecurity in America really reflects hunger in the American context. People rationing food, people choosing between food and rent, parents going without food to feed their children, children skipping meals. Given the fact that we are the wealthiest nation in the history of the world, the fact that we have tens of millions of people rationing food, and we're doing so even before the pandemic, really is appalling.
Let's break that down. Before moving on, we have to acknowledge there is a difference between hunger and food insecurity. Food insecure is describing circumstances of having limited or uncertain access of adequate food. Hunger is a physical experience, an individual level physiological condition that may result from food insecurity. Hunger results when someone has no food choice because they literally can't access food. All people hungry because of no food access are food insecure, but not all people with food insecurity are hungry. Let's talk about the second level. Low food security is reports of reduced quality, variety, and desirability of diet with little or no indication of reduced food intake. You can't afford the side salad. Maybe it costs too much. Maybe you don't have time to make one between working 3 jobs. Maybe you live in a food desert. Any way that your resources limit options. 6.4% of American households experienced low food security in 2019.
Food insecurity is often confused with hunger. Food insecurity actually means, the inability to get enough food to sustain a healthy lifestyle, not just going hungry. And so there are plenty of people who, they're in a financially hard situation, but they might be able to afford to eat ramen for a month and, still have food in their stomach, but they're not getting the nutritional value they need to live healthily.
Healthy is important. The American Diabetes Association reported in 2011 that people in America who live in the most poverty-dense counties are the most prone to obesity. There are 3 main reasons food insecurity leads to an unhealthy diet: limited finances, limited time, and limited access, which is often referred to as food deserts.
people realize that healthier food today tends to be more expensive than cheaper food, shelf-stable food, junk food. But unfortunately, those foods don't have nutritional value. They have high sodium content, and they have other unhealthy pieces that just don't make them good food to eat on a regular basis. On the other hand, the healthier foods, the greens, the produce, protein products, they're all more expensive. And part of the issue comes is that when people's financial situation starts to get rough, food is one of the first things they look to cut and reduce. You know, you're not going to cut your heating bill. You're not going to stop paying for water. You're not going to stop going to the gas station because you have to get to work. You have to pay for those things. And so you'll sacrifice your budget for healthier items, for other foods, and you'll cut down to cheaper, unhealthy stuff.
Additionally, like you were mentioning, time is a huge thing. If I can throw mac and cheese on the stove and it's done in 5 minutes, 10 minutes versus, sitting down, chopping vegetables, roasting them, cooking meat takes a long time. That's like a huge thing for people who are always on the go, have 1,000 things to do.
This is a large, like you said, food deserts. Some people have to drive, people from Holt Summit, they have to drive here because they're in Callaway County to get their WIC benefits. And then they have to drive to the store and they have to have reliable transportation and money for gas.
Time to get to the grocery store. We don't really have a lot of walkable grocery stores that are within a safe, walking kind of situation.
Few families experience food insecurity every day of the year, with USDA surveys often asking if they have experienced it within the last month.
So, financially struggling families, we use the term struggling financially or financial hardships because that is the truth, and it's a language that describes how situations can be temporary and permanent, that a family might be struggling financially 1 week or, an entire year.
Households may have to skip meals a few days a month, living paycheck to paycheck, or it could be a weekly occurrence. On average, very low food secure households experienced that status 7 months per year. Ending hunger in America is a must. But ending hunger in America has to be done right. To eat or not to eat should not be the only food choice people make. Everyone needs the freedom to choose what food they eat. In total, 10.5% of American households experienced food insecurity in 2019. Feeding America, a national nonprofit that researches and organizes solutions for food insecurity, says that statistic translates to over 37 million people. Early estimates say that because of COVID, close to 50 million people are experiencing food insecurity in America right now. Food insecurity resembles treading water in the ocean. Sometimes you have a solid life vest, like a job. Sometimes you face big waves. Sometimes your head ducks underwater. It fluctuates. The question is, how do we get people out of the water and into safe boats? What is being done now to help people in food insecurity? There are people working to end hunger in America, from advocacy groups to organizations physically providing food to individuals changing one life at a time. We're going to look at responses from both the government and private entities.
The federal safety net programs like SNAP, what used to be called food stamps, WIC, that goes to pregnant women and children under 5 school meals, that equals 15 times the dollar amount of all the food distributed by all the food banks, soup kitchens, and food pantries in America.
The 3 largest government programs that provide food for insecure households are SNAP, WIC, and Child Nutrition Programs. SNAP, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. This is what used to be called food stamps. In 2020, 39.8 million people participated in the program. each individual receiving on average $155.04 per month. The Biden administration has extended a 15% increase on the monthly amount that started during COVID, a change that many advocates hope will become permanent. In 2020, the government spent a total of $79.2 billion on SNAP. Eligibility for the SNAP program varies from state to state, but generally requires an individual or household to have a relatively low income to apply. This is a list of what SNAP funds can and cannot buy. There are few specific restrictions, giving people freedom to choose what type of food they get. People can use their SNAP funds at any approved retailer, which is a huge benefit of the program.
Food stamps are really important in terms of fighting food insecurity, but then also providing economic stimulus, because essentially that's money that goes into people's pockets which is then spent locally at grocery stores.
WIC, the Special Supplemental Nutrition Program for Women, Infants, and Children, focuses on feeding the next generation and the moms of America. In 2020, 1.4 million women participated in the program, 1.5 million infants, and 3.29 million children, for a total of 6.2 million participants. The average monthly benefit for a household in 2020 was $38.23, with the year's total national cost being $2.8 billion.
Foods that we provide for our clients are specific and key nutrients that they may be missing otherwise. So the foods that we largely provide are going to be fresh or frozen fruits and vegetables. We do whole grains, so with WIC you cannot buy white bread or white rice, it's only whole grain. We do approved cereals with specific sugar contents, low-fat dairy for anybody over the age of 2, and then we have pasta, rice, some of those other things.
Any woman, infant, or child living in a household with an income less than 185% of the U.S. Poverty Income Guidelines is eligible for the program. There are 5 main child nutrition programs that the U.S. government runs. National School Lunch Program, which serves 15.9 million free meals, 1.1 million reduced price meals, which together make up 76.9% of all school lunches. School Breakfast Program, which serves 10.2 million free breakfasts, 500,000 reduced price breakfasts, which together are 87.7% of all school breakfasts. The overall federal cost of these 2 programs, plus a milk program, is $13.86 billion.
These programs are available to children who are enrolled in schools and that are participating. So the kids that have access would be like a pre-K through 12th grade student.
Summer Food Service Program serves lunch during summer school and gives away 1.3 million meals at $4.27 billion. The Child and Adult Care Food Program reimburses child daycares and adult daycares for serving healthy meals and snacks to eligible children and adults enrolled at the centers. $3 billion is spent there. And the Fresh Fruit and Vegetable Program, which tries to encourage students to eat healthy by making sure they have access to fresh fruits and veggies in their school meals. Overall, in 2020, the U.S. government spent over $103 billion on the food programs listed. It's a big number made up of many small parts. For many, these supplemental programs are still not enough to get them out of the water and into a boat.
If you're in a U.S. context, this is done through a really patchwork quilt way of trying to get little pieces to fit together. So we have a food stamps program, which is a voucher program called our Supplemental Assistance to Needy Families program. But it was always set up as a limited and supplemental program, which was never designed to fully meet the needs, which is why the word supplemental is in the title, fully meet the needs of people who are hungry. So at some level, you can have a voucher system through SNAP, but in the US, we don't have a government program that's intended to help beyond the margins. And so you have to cobble together extra stuff. So that means you go to a food bank and you can try to pick up bags of food from the food bank to supplement. Families will rely on school lunches to help supplement, but school lunches in the non-pandemic time period don't happen, obviously, for dinner or weekends or school holidays or summers or whatever. If you have a child of a particular age or you're pregnant, you can qualify for WIC, but again, it's a supplemental funding. So the point is, in the US context, you have to be really savvy in trying to piece together lots of little things, because there's no system really to deal with hunger itself without doing a lot of piecemeal stuff.
Some states do offer their own food distribution programs, but Missouri is not among them. According to the most recent data, there are over 813,000 people who struggle with food insecurity in Missouri. The good news? Legislators are working on understanding more about where food insecurity exists in Missouri, which could lead to more action in the future. Their goal will work in tandem with research done by Mizzou's Interdisciplinary Center for Food Security.
You know, we found a lot of variation throughout the state. So if you look at the hunger data just on its own, you see that hunger is often highly correlated with poverty. But the other interesting part is when you then sort of overlay participation in programs that are intended to help. So things like food stamps and WIC and school lunch, you see that in some places in the state where there is a high need, there are a lot of people that participate in programs intended to help. But you look at other counties in the state and you see that there are large gaps between who might be eligible for a program and who is participating.
Looking at the county level, things start picking up. The smaller jurisdictions allow more collaboration between local government and private organizations. Plenty of groups take advantage of that opportunity and work to make their difference where they can. So many individuals and organizations work to fill the gap left by insufficient government funds in their own way. From training up the next generation to being that other source of food, here are some of the efforts that can be found in mid-Missouri.
I have a smoothie bike. And this bike, you have to ride it in order for it to blend the smoothie. And so I haul that around to different schools and we just make smoothies one day. And then I make sure to hand out the recipe to the kids, and it's only 4 ingredients. That's what I try to keep it at, so these kids can go home and do it. And the best is whenever they come back and they're like, Miss Kelsey, I went home and I made that smoothie for my brothers and sisters. And yeah, so that's the true goal, is can you take this home with you type of thing.
My job in our building is to coordinate like little programs within our school to get kids up and moving, to promote making healthy lifestyle choices that get us physically active, and also thinking about nutrition. You know, we all enjoy some form of food, but let's take a look at like what we're putting in our bodies. Does it help our mind? Does it help our body? Does it help our general health? And so just having kids start to think about, you know, really what they're putting in their body. Does the things that they're choosing to eat, although it might taste good, is it giving them nutritional value?
I personally want to teach the art of balance, and that's balancing life and storms and situations, but I'm gonna go ahead and focus on balancing food and exercise and physical activity. So knowing that it's okay to be lazy one day, but is it okay to be lazy 6 in a row? No. Is it okay to eat ice cream at a birthday party? Yes! Is it okay to do it every day? No! And just really, really praising healthy foods and what they can do for you. I just think you move in the direction of your dominant thinking, and if we just think diet, can't have this, can't have that, chocolate's bad for me, ice cream's bad for me. We're gonna move in that direction of thinking. And one of my goals is that no child ever diets again. Like, that hurts my feelings when I hear that a 10-year-old girl is dieting, whether it's because they saw it on social media, if they see one of their peers doing it, if they see an adult doing it. And so it's just this revolving door of, I'd love to train adults so that basically I use them to get to their children, because what you do, they're gonna see. And then sometimes I like just working with kids because they do teach who they're around too. Look at what I learned at school today. So I always joke at the gym, I'm like, I'm really just using you to get to your children. Because if you change your habits, you just changed a generational habit.
School and government programs give a framework for individuals to educate the young and the old about nutrition and some of the healthy choices they can make, even with limited options.
I don't like restrictive diets at all. People will tell me, oh, well, sometimes I want to go to Taco Bell, and I'm like, sure, of course you do. I want to go to Taco Bell, you want to go to Taco Bell, we all want to go to Taco Bell sometimes. Should you get the XXL cheesy gordita crunch, or should you get maybe the bean burrito? There's always choices that you can make no matter where you go. You just have to, again, have that education background.
The days that I want to take on the world, I realize that I can't change some kids' situations. So we will also sometimes go over, oh, you only live near a gas station? Well, here are some healthy choices you could make at that gas station. And we've done before where I went literally to the gas station. Some kids live in a food desert where there's just not a grocery store nearby within walking distance. And then just kind of giving that list of, well, here's a better choice than doing this, so maybe you start doing that more often. I mean, there's some families that have meals out of gas stations, right? Like, and it just gets to this point where I'm like, well, maybe I can't help that situation, but I'm gonna try to help as much as I can with the situation you're in. So I think that's just education, education, education over and over to parents and kids.
Showing young kids and moms the food choices they can make prepares them for future times where their risk of being food insecure is higher.
It has historically been that, struggling as a college student is kind of a rite of passage. You eat ramen noodles, you eat Easy Mac, and you just make it work. And that's not necessarily that's not right.
We don't frame college students as a population that experiences food insecurity. So we have this existing idea of the starving college student, which is really just masking the idea of food insecurity. But, you go to college and you're like, oh, we're going to live off ramen for a week. That's just what college students do. Like, that's not how it should be. And so I think the first step is really like breaking it down and acknowledging that food insecurity is an issue in the college population, because until that's acknowledged, we're just taught that that's the status quo, that's how college students eat.
National Institutes of Health report that as of 2019, 1 in 3 college students experience food insecurity. Student-specific regulations for SNAP complicate getting help during your college years. So organizations step up more to make sure college students have food access.
Within the Hope Center, my role is to actually not necessarily connect students with resources, but more so to connect institutions with resources and help institutions figure out what are the potential resources that they need to integrate on their campuses to help their students.
Many larger institutions, like St. Louis University, have on-campus food pantries.
Another unique thing about us is that we're all student-run, student-led. So a lot of universities will have a dedicated staff member who's in charge of running the pantry. But for us, we have like a student leadership team, and then our students are volunteers, and we just have like that advisor role in the Dean of Students office. So it's really great that students have the opportunity to kind of give back through this and be really involved in the resource that's being provided to them. And I think that helps us a lot on campus reduce the stigma around using it when it is all student run, and like you can get involved with helping this resource that you might also be using.
Moving past organizations that focus on specific demographics, let's look at some of the food providers in mid-Missouri that feed everyone while focusing on nutrition. More and more farmers markets across the nation are applying to be official retailers for SNAP, WIC, and other government programs. The Columbia Farmers Market goes a step farther with their matching program.
So the market is authorized to accept SNAP benefits. So anybody that has an EBT card can come to the Oasis booth, which is kind of our central hub for the market. We swipe their EBT card and we give them tokens for the exact value that we swipe their card. They then spend those tokens that on there says no sales tax, SNAP eligible items only. So they take those tokens and they spend them with the vendors. If they qualify for our Access to Healthy Food matching program, then we will match up to $35 at every market. So we would swipe their EBT card for $35 and then give them $70 to spend at the market. Who's eligible for the program? You have to have it's either children 19 and under, disabled, or seniors, and you do have to live in Boone County to qualify.
I love it. I use it. We get WIC for the baby, and so that allows me to get a match of $35. So I get $70 worth of great produce and meat instead of $35, which is great. So without that, I couldn't afford that kind of food.
Yeah.
Which is really great. So
everybody eats, right? And everybody should be eating healthy. And we're just, we're just grateful that we have the opportunity to help folks have access to all this amazing food that's grown locally.
Fresh produce can be hard for food banks and other food distribution groups to get a hold of. Community gardens help fill that gap.
Columbia Center for Urban Agriculture, we offer several programs. Our main program is called Planting for the Pantry. In that program, essentially, we raise money so that we can afford to grow all of the produce in all 3 of our gardens, which is about 20,000 pounds of produce a year. And we donate that to our local central pantry.
It's like a grocery store, and if we can provide on a given day maybe 100, 200 pounds of fresh produce, it's amazing how people will say, oh, and especially on given days when they don't have much, unfortunately it may not even last an hour because of the need is out there, and they see fresh produce, they're like, wow. So it's good to see what we do is beneficial for others who need some good food to eat.
I just want to grow vegetables without using any chemicals, and we want to be good to the earth. So that's one of the reasons why. And then also, helping to feed the poor is very important to me.
The Interfaith Garden is funded by different congregations and donations, and runs with the help of many student volunteers. Columbia Center for Urban Agriculture is fully funded by Boone County, Missouri.
Anybody who pays taxes in Boone County, they're actually supporting us. So I know, people don't like taxes, but what's nice about it is we can actually say, you pay taxes, and because of your tax dollars, we're able to do this program for all these families for free. We often try to get more volunteers, especially more younger volunteers, because we know that if, once you get hooked like that and you just get plugged in, you just realize what a big thing this is for the community and how important it is. Because again, until I went to the Central Pantry, I just didn't realize that they're just not getting, there's no access to a lot of produce.
Until about 10, 15 years ago, food banks were focused on providing whatever food it could get as cheaply as possible. And this resulted in a lot of shelf-stable goods, a lot of canned goods, a lot of goods really high in sodium, which unfortunately aren't the best for nutritional values, especially when it comes to heart health. And so 10 or 15 years ago, Feeding America, which is our national partner, decided to make a push and change the system. And since then, we've really focused on things we call foods to encourage. And so it's more nutritionally based food with healthier values and, less harmful consequences.
The Food Bank for Central and Northeast Missouri served 100,000 people in 32 counties every month during 2020. The food bank distributes food to 145 partner agencies, who turn around and distribute it directly to people in need.
Those are all independent organizations, and they receive most of the food we distribute. Each of them sets their own guidelines and requirements. That said, most of our network, including our direct distributions like mobile pantries, most of our network don't have set income guidelines to get basic forms of help. We have diverse funding sources. So a big portion is donations. People like you who go online and make a donation, get a piece in the mail, and they make a donation. Other funding is through grants. So, there are definitely plenty of community and local grants, statewide grants where, we might be able to apply for them and get funding to buy more buddy packs, buy a new truck, buy a forklift, something along those lines. Funding also comes through federal programs like USDA programs, where they'll provide us food, and food kind of is counted as funding because you're providing a good and it has a money value, where they'll provide, a lot of food for some of our programs. There is an old stigma or an old idea of food drives that it was used for people to empty out their cabinets. They would reach in there and grab the 2-year-old can of lima beans and say, "This is great to donate. I'm not going to eat it. Here you go." 2 problems. 1, it's been in your cabinet for 2 years. It's, old in its shelf life. Problem 2, it's lima beans and no one wants to eat it. So that's the thing, is that when we're telling people what they should donate for, food drives, it's usually, we want you to donate what you like to eat, what you want from shelf-stable goods. And ideally, it's not things that are close to being expired. You shouldn't be cleaning out your cabinet for a food drive. It should be goods that, are still good, and it's foods that, people will want to eat. Because ultimately, someone who's food insecure, they still have a sense of taste.
On that note, what can you do? The solutions covered in this documentary are just a few of the organizations working to end hunger in America. The first thing you can do is research the groups in your area and what they're doing to fight food insecurity. Chances are, wherever you live, you can volunteer, donate, and advocate. Volunteer. Nonprofits always need help with physical tasks, from packing food at food banks to pulling weeds at gardens. Donate. Through bulk purchasing power, food banks often stretch $1 much farther than it would go in the normal economy. Advocate. Call legislators, share education, talk to friends. The more people who know about food insecurity and how it impacts Americans, the closer we are to unifying our efforts to give everyone food choice.